Hi, I'm Jim Pence, and welcome to another episode of Drawing with Chalk. We're going to do something a little different this week. It's Easter week, and so I thought I would show you a couple videos of some blacklight drawings that I do a lot, and give you a little commentary. I know we don't normally focus on blacklight work in this podcast, but I thought you might enjoy this as sort of a special treat. I'm beginning Jesus at the pilot wheel here, and it's one of my favorite chalk drawings of all time. I do this one almost every time when I go to a new place. And what I'm doing right now is just getting the basic shape of Jesus' head and face there. I do work from a sheet, a photograph of a drawing, just to remind myself of everything that needs to go into it. So you can see me holding that there. It's taken quite a few years to really perfect the process of doing this drawing. I have done it many times, and there were times in the early going when it might take me hours to do what took me about 20 to 30 minutes here, because I would get the proportions wrong, and I'd have to start over again many times. On this particular one, I really wasn't overly happy with the nose when I got finished. It was a little bit larger than I wanted, but I have sort of a certain level of tolerances, I guess. If it doesn't make the face look unnatural, a lot of times I will leave it, even if the feature is a little larger or different than I prefer. So right here, I'm drawing in his neck and smoothing that out. I've already got the basic face done. Of course, when you're drawing with blacklight chalk, you're drawing the highlights. You don't have to draw the dark parts in. You just leave that part dark. So it's sort of a reverse drawing. Now here I'm adding, using blue to kind of cut in his hair. As you'll see, I'm coming in the back there, and that's ultimately going to be the outline. So I'm actually drawing his hair in silhouette. And sometimes it's more difficult than you'd imagine to get that just quite right, because if I do it too small, then the head doesn't look right. If I do it too large, then that doesn't work either. So so I get that cut in. I'm just cutting in some shoulder shapes here, and using kind of an aqua tone. Coming back in with a lighter blue. It actually looks almost whitish there, but to accent a little bit more around the face, to just give a little bit more highlight as I continue in that process. Okay, now I'm beginning to draw the pilot wheel, and this is always probably the most challenging part for me, doing this drawing, because it again, if I was going to be just real precise, I would use a compass of some sort to draw the circle, get the shape just right. I rarely do that, but what I am doing is trying to get as good a shape as possible, as much as I can, just by eyeballing it and drawing the posts in and shaping those. I have to be real careful when I do this, because if I draw too hard here, I do a lot of smoothing, and if I lay in too much chalk, then the pilot wheel actually is visible even with the black light off. So I try not to use too much pressure or use too much chalk when I'm doing this. Now another part of this drawing is where his hand is on the pilot wheel, and he's guiding the ship. This is for my stormy sea drawing, and I draw a ship on a wave about to crash on rocks, and the black light, of course, is Jesus guiding that ship to safety. Drawing hands is always a challenge because if you get it too small, it doesn't fit, it doesn't look right. If you get it too big, it also is out of proportion. So it's one of the more challenging parts of doing this picture. You notice I keep turning on the white lights. That's just to check and make sure that I'm not leaving anything that can be seen with the black light off. Adding a little bit of kind of a lighter color. It's almost a peach there that's going on, just to get a little highlighting in his face. And when we do flesh with blacklight chalk, we actually use orange, and kind of a light orange. The peach color is much too white to use for realistic skin. They look pale. Figures look pale and almost ghostly if you use just straight peach. So I'm throwing in some clouds on. I'm putting in the lighthouse, and now adding a little bit of highlighting coming off of that lighthouse there, kind of reflecting off of his body. And now the last touch here is I'm going to take his hair, and instead of having it look like it's pulling back, I like to pull it down and make it look like it's blowing in the wind. It gives him a more youthful and just a more confident appearance, I think. So that's the one thing I do here, and just again throwing some highlights in to make that a little bit more realistic. Some light highlights on the beard, and there you have it. That all told probably took about 30 minutes. You can see it's pretty well hidden, so I'm happy with that one. Now we're going on to the second drawing, and that is the resurrection. And again, this is one of my favorite drawings. I actually use this blacklight picture on a couple of different drawings, but the one that I use it most on is when I draw a Jerusalem on one side and Calvary on the other. I always start out with the figure and get the figure of Jesus positioned first, beginning there by drawing the forehead, and then I come down and just do a line for the nose. I do have a video on my YouTube channel that shows how I draw this face of Jesus. It's one I learned from my mentors, Ding and Dave Tooling, and it's something I've drawn a lot, and yet it always presents its own challenges, particularly when I'm drawing it that small. That's one of the challenges with chalk art. See, I didn't like the nose there, so I'm taking that out. Gonna put regular white chalk back in to hide that I've taken the other out, and I'm going to try that nose again. One of the challenges in doing a black light effect that has smaller detail like this is if you make it too small, then people in the back of a reasonably large auditorium will have difficulty figuring out what it is you're drawing. So you have to make it large enough that they can interpret it from the back of the room and understand what you're drawing here. It's a very simple face construction. Remember, we're drawing on a dark surface and drawing with light. So here are just the forehead, the cheeks, and then I draw a lip in, a couple marks halfway down the chin, and then the neck. Now the rest is going to be cut in as a silhouette. I'm using blue chalk here, and I'm going to just come around and shape his hair in. Now I'll go back and tweak that shape a little bit later. Right now I'm just getting the basic silhouette of Jesus' body here. So I'm going to have him standing with his arms outstretched in a very victorious posture. Now the next part is here that I'm working on is the hands, and the hands definitely, as I said in the first drawing, are the biggest challenge to me, and this is a good illustration of where it can be problematic. Again, I'm trying to put in enough detail so that it looks good, but if you don't get the fingers quite right, it just you know, it looks it just, well, no other word for it, it just looks bad. And so the other thing is, most of us don't realize how large the hands are, and when we draw hands like this in a figure, tend to make them too small. If you will look, those hands are pretty large, and you can try this out on your own face. If you put your hand on your face, you'll see that the hand pretty much covers your face. It's much larger than we tend to think. Okay, again, I'm double checking, make sure that I'm not leaving any telltale marks there. I've got the hands done, and so now I'm going to move on, add a little bit more highlighting. Most of Jesus' robe and body is actually going to be, again, silhouetted with highlighting on it. I'm going to have the light coming from the back, and I'll begin to add that a little later. Right now I'm just adding some folds in. You can see the picture that I'm working from there. This is actually a combination of a couple of different blacklight drawings that I have put together and made into one. And so now I'm going to go down and lay the rest of the shape in here. And as you can see, I'm going to come back and begin to add in the light that's going to radiate from behind Jesus. So I'm going to cut that in with kind of a light chalk, light blue, and come around all the way around his shoulder and his head and hands as well. I'm going to at certain points pull that out so it looks like light radiating, but right now I've just got to get the chalk on the paper so that you can so that I have something to work with. Now I'm just using my fingers and pulling that out so that it looks at least somewhat like light is radiating out from behind him. Now I'm going to add a little bit to that here in a minute, but it's one of the tricks of learning blacklight work is to learn how to again leave the darks and just draw the lights, because normally we work just the opposite of that. We work on a light paper, and when you're drawing, you draw the darker shades in. Okay, I'm throwing in just a little bit of kind of a red highlight here, kind of a purplish red, and picking up some more chalk, coming in now with my lighter yellow. In a few moments I'm going to be having the sunrise off there to the left of the picture, and so I'm wanting some of that light to be shining off of him. I am also going to have some more here on the other side, but again, I just want to accent that that radiance that we kind of imagine the resurrected Christ having. Again, just adding in more highlights and coming in with that yellow at the top. It's easy to overdo this, and at times less is more. You want to make it dramatic, but if you come in and you just totally bring in too much bright, then it overwhelms everything else. So now I'm coming in, and you'll notice I'm using it's actually a foam craft brush. What I'm doing, I'm reshaping the forehead. See, I took chalk off, so now I've got to come back in and cover up what I took out with just regular white chalk. And now I am continuing to work at shaping a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of highlight in on the hair. Again, a lot of these details people aren't going to see in great detail from a distance, but it does give a little bit more of a full, full figure, a full appearance so I like to add those details. Okay, I'm coming in with kind of a purple here, and we're going to create a little bit of a sunrise effect off to the left, and mostly going to just use purple and yellow here, and maybe some gold. That's gold I'm laying in right now. It's not quite as bright as the yellow behind Jesus. I'm going to blend those clouds together. Remember, you want to use as much of the darkness of the paper as possible. Now what's going to happen is as I draw the picture, Mount Calvary, where Jesus was crucified, is going to be drawn right under those highlighted areas, and the particularly bright cloud area is going to be where the three crosses are. All right, now the other thing that I add to this is I add the empty tomb, and I put that on the other side of the drawing, and as you can see, I'm coming in and creating just the suggestion of a mountain, using mostly the dark of the paper, and then suggesting a stone partially rolled away. I do that on purpose, instead of having it fully rolled away as it probably was. Again, it helps give you the idea that the stone has been moved. And so now I'm coming in just with that same gold from the other side, and using that to highlight and give a feel of rocks. I don't have to go into a great deal of detail here, because people will pretty much get the idea of what is being depicted. All right, just a couple final touches, and let's see, I'm not sure what I'm about to do here. I'm coming in now. I'm going to tweak the hair a little bit, add in a few highlights. Got to be real careful not to add too much there, because it does tend to overwhelm if you put too much in. But I'm pretty close to the end of that one, and so that is how you draw a Jesus at the pilot wheel, or in this case, the resurrection. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week.